let's build a approval flow. An approval flow can be created inside an automated flow, and inside an instant cloud flow, or a scheduled flow as well. Inside of any one of these, we can put an approval workflow inside. What the approval is going to make us do is going to allow us to interrupt the process, wait for approval. Once the approval has been collected and achieved, then it will continue with the process. So let's start with an instant cloud flow for as an example. Let's call this approval workflow, and we will trigger this process manually. So what we want in this process is we want to send an email. So when we trigger this process, we want an approval and to be generated, and then if the approval is okay, we are going to send an email. So let's create this process very quickly. So let's make it a little bit more interesting, and let's replicate the weather report that we had in the previous example. So let's do this very quickly. So let's get the forecast for tomorrow, and let's get it in Montreal. And after that, we will add a new action. We are going to say if we're going to wait for an approval. So let's search for approval, and here we have the approvals. So let's select this approval, and we have create an approval, start and wait for an approval, wait for an approval. So in this example, we are starting and waiting for an approval both at the same time. So we're going to start the approval process. We're going to approve and reject. We're going to call this approve weather report. We will assign it to myself. And we can add further description and items such as, for example, information that needs to be improved and description. Let's say, do you want to send this email? So let's save this, and right here we are creating an approval. Now in the next step, let's send an email. So let's go back to Outlook. Let's not select Office, let's select Outlook connector. So we could use the Office as well, but let's go with the Outlook selector. And let's send an email. So we have to sign in again. Let's sign in and connect our connector. Now our connector is connected. Let's send an email to ourselves, and let's add some information. Weather report. And let's add here let me show you what I'm looking at. Let's add here some dynamic content such as the conditions. All right, let's save this process, and this process now should not send the email. It should interrupt, it should wait for an approval, and we should get an approval in our home or in our action items and approval. So let's save this, and let's test this process and see if we get an approval for weather. So let's test this and see what happens. We're using all of these three different connectors. So we're using approvals, weather, and Outlook. So let's run this flow, and once we run this flow, we can check that it has stopped right here. So if I go to my inbox right now where I sent, I can see that I have received an email that says approve this report or no. Now if I approve it, the process should continue. Now let's go back to our process and let's see it in execution. So this was our approval process. This is still running, so it's still running, and let's approve it. So let's approve it from right here. We are sent right here inside of our approvals in the action items, and we have the ability to approve our process. So let's write a description. and send email, and let's confirm this. So once this is confirmed, the process will continue with the different steps. Now this process has been approved. Now we should, in a little bit, we should receive an email. Now let's go back to our processes and see what is happening with it. So this is a summary of everything that happened inside of the approval. So this is the approver who approved this process. There is a response that was collected, which is to approve. It stores the date. I can also use all of this information further on and say also here in the email who is the one that approved the process out of the different people. And this also gives me the ability to build elaborate and complex processes that require also human input inside of the process, so that there is a human that is controlling different checks or different checkpoints within the automation that is happening.